Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So I wasn't planning on making a video about this because honestly it's very minor in the grand scheme of things, but once I started taking a closer look at it, I decided to have a little bit of fun with it because it reminded me of something that I felt like it was the right time to kind of bring up again. And it's one of those things where I don't want to kill him too hard about it, but at the same time I do also kind of want to bring up something that I feel like is rather appropriate to bring up. And one of the favorite whipping boys of the channel is Beckett and Beckett grading in general, and it's become kind of a fun little trope especially on the live stream, to kind of poke fun at Beckett and its various utterances and the fact that it does very little a lot of the time, and even when they do an announcement, it's very minor stuff, and it's basically one of those things where even when they announce something, it's nothing most of the time. Now this is a case where I'm not going to say it's nothing. I'm not going to go quite that far, but I do want to point out a couple of things that are kind of make it interesting. It's like only Beckett would really find a way to do something like this and still consistently miss the mark yet again on one of those things. And the one of the impetuses that brought me to kind of deciding to make a video about this is that some of the comments that were in the post that I'm going to share with you here, and as always, I'll put a link to it in the description for the Instagram post that I'm citing, and then the other ones that I'm going to reference here. But then the second part of it is that I listened to some podcasts recently where the folks still talk about the Beckett and Beckett grading in particular, and they speak to it about what it once was for some folks, especially. I was never a huge fan of Beckett grading, but it served its purpose. It was there, and it was certainly one of the big players for quite a while, and some very high profile, high end cards have ended up in Beckett slabs. But the reality is, a lot of that has been, the rest of the grading side of the hobby has passed them by. And Beckett just stayed planted in place, and they just stayed there as they quickly got passed by PSA. And then subsequently, I'd argue probably SGC's already passed them as well. So in reality, they're like a number three on a good day. And for me, like in terms of quality overall, I would probably put them closer to number four. Now, if I'm being realistic about this, they did a lot of this to themselves. They did a lot of this damage to themselves, especially during this pandemic period that we just came off of, where the industry expanded and there was the gigantic boom and everything. And during the course of that, where Beckett just stood there while everybody left them in the dust. But the fact is, even now, even at this point, with all this time having gone by and all these other things happening, and like it being clear that they have to do something, and I guess trying to do certain things as far as company wise in terms of trying to move the ball forward, they still struggle with even the basics, and I'll kind of share that with you a little bit here. So what I want to share with you now is their social media posts. So this is from their Instagram right here, and I'll read you the caption for it, and again I'll include a link in the description as I mentioned to you. It says, goodbye white and blue labels. All slabs graded 9 and below will now feature silver labels. We hope that this small change will bring added value to your collection. Now, as I said earlier, I don't want to just kill them for the sake of killing them. Now, in reality, and I'm just going to let this play a little bit here, you can see the little posts in here talking about, oh, the silver looks good, this and that, getting feedback from all these, presumed postings as far as that's concerned. And I'll just read a couple of the comments on here. Great decision. I always thought 8-bit low should be a bronze label, but this works too. Now, this next one here I think is an appropriate one because it kind of covers one of the points that I want to make here. Next, let's get a scannable barcode with an app to make it so we don't need a master's degree to figure out what the pop report is. PSA has the barcode thing, and that's definitely a great benefit. Scrolling forward a little bit and further down, and they do respond to that and give a little bit of feedback as well as far as that's concerned. But here, baseball card exchange. Great move. Love it. More companies should listen to customers like Beckett is right now. And this right here, in a nutshell, is the problem. There are a lot of folks that want to give a tremendous amount of credit for very little. Now, the thing is, even in Beckett's defense, in their fairness to them, they even put in the post that it is a small change. And by all admission, it is a small change, but a welcome one. That's why I say, like, I don't want to just be like negative, negative, negative here. There is a positive to it in the sense that I agree. The paper label I always thought looked kind of like garbage. I've never been a big fan of it. And I've actually got one here that I'll use as an example. Like I said, Beckett's certainly not my favorite, but I will buy cards in a Beckett slab if it's a card that I want, because I still want to get the card that I want. So this one is one of the recent favres that I picked up in the collection, and you can see it has got the boring old white label. See if I can do that without too much glare. But you can see it's a 7.5, so it uses the white label, which is not the greatest in the world. It's, like I said, it's so basically under the new system, this would be a silver label, very similar to what the higher grades were, the 9 and above previously. And now we would have this as a silver label instead of this boring old white label. But here's the problem. Even though that's an improvement, and again, by all acknowledgement, it is an improvement. It is a step in the right direction. It is better. But the point that I would make, and kind of as a counter to this, is you didn't change the design of the label. You didn't add additional functionality to the label. In reality, what you did is you got rid of these, the paper labels, this kind of thing, and then you replaced it with the silver label, which, by the way, is the same silver label as, the BGS 9 and above from before. So basically, you just ordered more silver labels. You got rid of the blue label and you got rid of the white label, and you said, oh, so now let's get more of the silver ones. You just went to the supplier, whoever you got, and ordered more silver labels with the same label design and with the same slab. And specifically, the slab is the point that I'm going to make here. You had an opportunity to kind of combine two things into one. And now it's time to go a little bit back in time and give a little bit of a reminder of why, in a situation like this, when Beckett did, again, what they did here with Beckett was fine. But the fact that you didn't redesign the label, you didn't redesign the slab still, even at this point, is kind of the bigger problem. Because we're going to go back in time a little bit in the Wayback Machine here, and I'll include a link to this in the description for you. And I'll give you a video clip, and then I'll also give you a little bit of context for it, just to remind you, because it has been a little while since we last talked about this other discussion of the topic. All right, so a little reminder here for folks that may not recall. This is actually from a live stream that was on the Beckett Collectibles YouTube channel. This was back some time ago, and I'll actually cite the exact time for you. This was streamed live on January 27th, 2021. So it's 4 days shy of 2 years ago. Now, if you don't recall, at the time Beckett was responding, this live here was a response to reports that came out that were also confirmed afterwards by Beckett of fake BGS slabs. So what happened was people had figured out how to counterfeit the slabs. And there were posts on social media, there were posts on Twitter, there were posts on Blowout Forum, there was also a card porn post. So there were a variety of different posts that had shown these duplicate BGS slabs. So you had an example of presumably the real one, and then also another one that looked fairly similar, not quite 100% identical. And they did talk about in this live stream some of the differences that they noted as far as that's concerned. The patent numbers was one of the key pieces that people were able to identify. But the point is that people had come up with, counterfeit fabrications that were pretty close. They were close enough that they were concerning in the sense that Beckett had been replicated. Now, there's a good little sound clip here that I'm going to play for you that I think is kind of indicative of kind of the problem. And it's ironic given that, like I said, that little mini announcement. Again, I don't want to kill them because they even alluded to it being a small change. But given that this was almost 2 years ago, I'm going to kind of point out why this is like indicative of all this time, and this is all you have to show for it. And I'll remind you of another piece here in a minute. But let me play the little audio clip here for you just to remind you. This is almost 2 years ago. Bear that in mind.
It's opened our eyes to some things that, hey, we've done something for 21 years. Maybe it's time to adjust the way our slabs look. Maybe it's time to adjust the way our labels look. There's crooks out there. It's obvious with this, and you've got to stay ahead of the game. We've experienced it for 21 years in the business. Other grading companies have experienced the same thing, and they've had to make some changes. So I can argue both sides of it. Should we have said something quicker? Maybe. Should we have said something the way we did? Maybe. So we did what we did.
That was Jeremy Murray from Beckett almost 2 years ago. And I'd agree with the sentiment of it. And part of the fun at the time, because I was still doing the live stream at that point, is that we also poke fun at them at the time, whether they waited literal months before they acknowledged it earlier on, but they waited a couple of months before actually responding to it. Now, their point at the time was, well, we're investigating it further and trying to get a little more information to it. And there's actually some damning stuff in this interview. And this is from the Beckett's own. So this is Beckett Live Presents. Talking about it. So they're like on state-sponsored television here doing this interview, this mea culpa, and at the same time is like there was some damning stuff in it even at the time, and we talked about it back then. But the point is, even at that time, Jeremy Murray is acknowledging that other companies had made adjustments to their slabs and to their labels, and talking about making adjustments to the slabs and to label, and 2 years on, there have been no adjustments to the slab or to the label. Even this announcement sort of was an adjustment, only from the perspective of if anything, fell below, a 9 on the BGS slab, then it goes from being this label to the metallic label, which is the same metallic label which they're currently using, except now they're going to use it more. By the way, I'm also going to remind you of that time at the National where they were starting to show off the new rebranding, the Beckett logo rebrand, which, by the way, is now on the website, and the website is slowly starting to alter towards it. But just to be clear, that little post, the social media post from earlier today, was that they're going to use the metallic label, which is already in effect for lower graded cards that have this label, or labels like it, or the blue one. They're going to use the metallic label they already have. They're not going to redesign what is being printed on the metallic label. They're going to keep that for now. And the label, the actual holder itself has not been updated. They haven't even incorporated the new logo into it yet. They did show off a concept slab at the national, but then they backtracked and said, "Oh, they're just getting feedback. That isn't the new holder." So clearly, we're almost 2 years on. There is no new label. There is no new holder. There has been no change to the existing label, no change to the existing holder. Nothing that has added any security whatsoever to a Beckett slab 2 years after the fact. And they're, again, small change, but announcement is that they're going to now use the metallic labels on more cards. I know this is hard to believe, but I'm actually not trying to just kill them for the sake of killing them. But I'm like, it's been 2 years, Jeremy. 2 years. Could there be some indicator? Here's a thought. How about some kind of an idea or a timeline? Hey, we're working on that new slab. We're getting close. An update would be great. Anything. Just something. It would have actually been a really good opportunity, just my opinion. It would have been a really good opportunity if you had kind of combined this with, oh, by the way, at the same time, we're also going to be changing the format of the label a little bit. We're going to add something to the label. We're going to do something that would make it a little harder to counterfeit. You could have literally started with just the label as your starting point of something that you could do to potentially try to help and make it a little bit less easy to counterfeit. We haven't talked about it in a long time because for the most part, people just aren't paying attention to it. People are still submitting cards to Beckett to put in slabs, so there's no doubt about that. But at the same time, it died down. Basically, they just sat back and waited for it to die down. It did. People aren't really giving them a hard time about it. I'm bringing it up now because, frankly, it amused me. When I saw that, I was like, so you're doing something related to the label and not actually changing the label whatsoever. Not changing the slab whatsoever. Still making no changes. And then when I looked at the timeline and realized that it had been almost exactly 2 years, I was like, that's even better. That's fantastic. Almost on the 2-year anniversary of that as this comes out, and we still got nothing to show for it. And that's after waiting months of investigation to confirm. Again, that little clip I played for you is perfect given the context of it. But that is testament. 2 years on, and Beckett has almost nothing to show for it as far as making any real change or any real adjustment. But don't worry, guys. We ordered more metallic labels, so there you go. We got rid of the paper ones. We got rid of the blue ones. You're good to go. And any of you who already have the previous, you can send it in and pay them more money to swap out the label. That's excitement right there. Like I said, while it is fun to poke fun at them, and it is, it's testimony to just exactly how hard some folks are. They're really attached to the nostalgia of that Beckett brand, and it's kind of scary at this stage in the game that they would be that associated or that attached to it that is like, this was an opportunity. It was yet another dropped opportunity for our good friends at Beckett, and we'll probably have a little bit of fun with it on the live stream, no doubt. But just kind of it's a head shaker because honestly, it was a slam dunk. The first thing I would have said is like, just change up the label, do anything to combine it with it, and then hey, there you go. You get a little bit of people being happy that you made that change, long overdue, and it was a good change. Like, it's not a bad thing, but you could have combined it with something useful to go along with it, or something that made it a little easier to access the population report or whatever. Just something that would have been a great complement to this other change, because again, at the moment, it's basically cosmetic, and not even in a useful way, just strictly a cosmetic way. That said, I'll leave it at that for now. More videos coming up on the channel and live streams at 8 p.m. Eastern time, where we'll talk about whatever stuff is going on in the hobby. We'll have a little fun with this one. We'll poke fun at it a little bit. Again, like I said, kudos to them for making a change that I think is appropriate. I think it'll look better to have that than this, for example. But nonetheless, it's not really helpful to the majority of people. And you're probably not going to spend money to resubmit stuff like that just to get swapped out to another label. But it was a missed opportunity. Like, my big overarching thing here is that going back in time here and seeing that there was an obvious change that you needed to make that you still have not made. This was yet another missed opportunity in the whole litany of missed opportunities that you could have done something really good or useful here that you are well past overdue for. And it's just testament to a company that just seems to continue to stand still while everything else just continues to move on around it. Even if we're not satisfied with the way the other ones are moving, at least they're moving. This one just seems stuck in place at all times, and it's bizarre at this stage. It's gone from being kind of funny to being kind of sad to just being weird. That they're still stuck in this one position and they just don't seem capable of getting out of it. And again, the proof is in the pudding and the video is available. I'll include a link, like I said, in the description to the actual social media post where they, a lot of this label change or label update, I guess, is what you want to do it. I don't even want to call it an update. It's just using the existing label. I'll link to the actual video here from the Beckett Live Presents. And then I'll also include a link to Blowout where they were talking about that initially, again, 2 years ago and change. It was the end of 2020 into the beginning of 2021 when this whole thing came up originally. And now we're at the beginning of 2023 and we're still here. Anyway, that's it for me. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.